Man, woman, child, yeah, straight pride. Man, woman, child.
I'm talking about nation building, I'm talking about raising children.
Family, the backbone of the nation, along with spirituality, culture, and education. Your Negro president supporting abomination. Get it? Abomination, this is an abrasion. The black family needs saving. Mental enslavement got you sexing like cavemen. Sisters that they gave friend, closer to playpen. Now you wonder why Jason is messing with gay men. To make our population double, gotta build some healthy couples. Black man and woman, bond strong as healthy muscles. Brothers find a hustle, love your woman, let her trust you. Some of y'all on the down low and feminine like Russell Simmons. Whether you pitching or you catching, you's a faggot. I ain't talking ERAs, homers are batting average. Y'all sodomites, pedophiles, fudge packers, lesbos, butchers and dykes and bull daggers. Straight pride, man, woman, child.
I'm talking about nation building, I'm talking about raising children.
Straight pride, man, woman, child.
I'm talking about nation building, I'm talking about raising children.
Straight pride, man, woman, child, yeah, straight pride. Man, woman, child, yeah, straight pride. Man, woman, child.
I'm talking about nation building, I'm talking about raising children.
They wanna kill our Y chromosomes, triple our X. Have a sword fighting for the fire, homosexuality. 2 moms, 2 dads, I don't care what heaven has. Kids, skip that paragraph, do some extra credit math. Not the lampoon, but in the bathroom, Senator Larry Craig.
How's everyone doing today? I can't quite hear you. How is everyone doing today? All right. I'm Brother Conrad. I'm the leader of the DC chapter of the Straight Black Pride movement. And this is our event in honor of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, our modern day goddess Aset. And we want to welcome you out and thank you for coming to our event. Once again, it is an honor to be amongst black people who are the original people and thus are the greatest people on the planet. All right. Just want to make sure the mic is working. I don't know. Energy's kind of low. Are we glad to be here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, I know it's kind of cold. You know, wintertime has extended into March. You know, I know people would like it to be warm and you be able to wash your car and cruise around and listen to some music. But I'm glad you're here to join us in this honoring this great ancestor. She's really one of the greatest minds that we produced in the last 100 years. And the only thing I regret is that we don't always get the opportunity to honor people while they're here.
That's right.
And I have a personal regret with that because as we began the Straight Black Pride movement and we started to organize in DC, I had planned to personally go and speak to Dr. Welsing in January. I believe the lecture was scheduled for the 12th. And then of course I heard that she had fallen ill, I believe the 2nd. And so I never got the opportunity to personally speak to her and get her blessing for what we were doing. But I greatly believe that she would be, that she's with us, that she believes in our cause and in our movement. And to be perfectly honest, she laid the intellectual foundation for the principles of Straight Black Pride. And if anyone's really familiar with her work and familiar with her book, The ISIS Papers, she spoke about some of the issues that we're talking about now back in 1971. So that shows how far advanced that she was. And when really very few people were connecting racism, white supremacy with feminization, homosexuality, she was writing about it in the early 70s. So we should give her a black hand for warning us about what was coming. Thank you, Sister Kendake, for giving us those announcements. And once again, the April 9th event will be a free event, and that is a very important event, as we know and as we've seen. In PG County just recently, there's a case of massive sexual abuse. It's really astounding what took place. How many people are familiar with that story? about half the room. Okay. I'm gonna go over that just briefly.
Wait, which story? So
The
Be more specific.
right. The sexual abuse case that took place inside the school in Glen Arden.
After prosecutors say he made videos of children having sex with him and each other, a volunteer aide at a suburban Maryland elementary school is facing federal child pornography charges. 22-year-old Deontay Caraway faces life in prison if convicted of the 8 federal charges. Police believe that during the school day at an elementary school in Glen Arden, Maryland, and at an aquatic center, Caraway videotaped sexual acts between minors and sexually abused some of the victims. The victims range in age from 9 to 13. The school's principal has been placed on leave. According to the lawsuits, she didn't follow up on complaints about Caraway. In addition, after she was shown one of the tapes, she didn't go directly to police.
Talk about it.
I see this sister looking like, what? Yeah, I see the look on your face, sister, so we're gonna just go through real quick. There was a volunteer in the school. Apparently he knew someone, the principal, some type of way, that's how he got his job. And he was filming children engaged in sexual activity in the school, in the gymnasium. Now we all know what a gymnasium looks like. You can look out here. It's a wide open space. So it's really difficult to understand how this takes place without anyone knowing. It just so happened that an uncle of one of the children saw the cell phone of one of the students. He saw some of the activity going on and he alerted people. So this just goes to show, if this is happening in the school,
that's right,
in the gym, where everyone should be able to see, where are our children safe? That's the question we have to ask. And really, if everyone's familiar with our video that we put out, Black Exodus.
When you're actually up and awake, you're doing things. So what the brother's asking, the answer is those of us who claim to be nationalists have to produce tangible, real things for black
I think that's what we're
people.
saying too. Like,
I'm for totally a mass exodus of all black children from the public school system, and I'm down with
about the click, let's organize. I'm taking what's rightfully by y'all.
We spoke about the horrors of the public school system, or as Barbara Crazy calls it, the psychological gas chamber. And at this point, we really have to come up with a solution to how we can educate our own children, because they're not safe in these schools anymore.
That's right.
They're just not. So with that, we're going to go into, I want to give some definitions, because I see some new faces here, on what the Straight Black Pride movement is, and what we mean by the word straight, what we mean by the word black, and what we mean by the word pride. Because what often happens when you have miscommunication is because one person understands the word to mean one thing, another person may have a different understanding, and before you know it, you have confusion. So, the Straight Black Pride movement is a self-help, self-funded, self-organized movement for black people. It is an international movement. It is a movement based on repairing and resurrecting the relationship between the black man and the black woman, and also the building of the traditional family structure. And I have to focus on the word traditional because, as we know, we've been under assault and bombarded with all types of things that really don't make a family. We understand biologically that it takes a black man with a black woman to produce black people.
that's right.
We understand that, right?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that we're not confused. Because if we look in the media today, we have all types of things going on. Every time you turn on the TV, you might see a black man with someone you can't identify. You don't know who she is. There's a black woman with a white man. They're always clear on that. Black woman's always with the white man. You know, they want to make sure that the sisters really know that there's another option available, which is, of course, our former slave master. Think about that for a moment. So when we say, when we look at the media, we see that there's really a target and attack on black family. You almost never see black families. When you do, it really, most times, is not functional. Now, I don't look at a lot of television, I'm not gonna lie. It got to the point where I couldn't look at it, I was disgusted, I really didn't want to be bothered. But what's taking place is, I realized that I had to look at it at least a little bit so I could understand what was going on.
Yes, sir.
Because I started seeing really young sisters, you know, wearing all this weave all the way down their back, wearing really a lot of makeup. Like, I've never seen black women wear this much makeup in my life. So I didn't know what was going on. And I'm talking about, these are young sisters. So one day I was turning channels and like Love and Hip Hop or whatever that is, that was on. And I noticed that all of the women look like this. And then I realized, okay, this is where it comes from. The stuff that's on television now, the prancing elites, which is, how many people have heard of that? Yeah, because if anybody raised their hand and said, yeah, I looked at it. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. Yeah, it's horrible. There's another show, I'm not sure the name of the show, where they have these dance troupes of really very young sisters in these dance competitions. I don't know if anybody knows what the name of the show is. It's really, really bad for our people. These young ladies are probably between, I'll say, 12 and maybe 16 years old. The types of dances they're doing, the types of clothes they're wearing is really unbelievable. And what I realize is that this TV show, these things aren't just happening for this TV show. This is a national thing, it's a big thing. It's going around the country. And of course, some of the teachers or coaches or whatever they call themselves are, of course, really, really, really homosexual males, I guess the word Mike can use. I mean, I can't describe it. You have to see it. These are the types of things that when you're at work, if you have cable, this is what your children are looking at. And every day they're being bombarded with this type of activity. And our Queen Mother, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I saw a clip of her years ago, and she was talking about psychological warfare. And she said that after black people started talking about black is beautiful and black pride and black self-respect and things like that, that the choice was made to attack African people, black people in America, psychologically, so that we would lose our self-esteem and lose our self-respect, because she taught us that self-respect is the foundation of justice. Now, the first time I heard that statement, I didn't understand. It didn't make sense. I didn't see the correlation. But what I realized is that if you don't have self-respect, you won't do anything to better yourself.
That's right.
And if you won't do anything to better yourself, whether as an individual or as a collective, nothing will get done. What we don't realize is that even people who we may not agree with politically, there's a certain amount of self-respect it took to say, I'm not getting on this bus. I'm going to walk to work.
That's right.
And then it took a collective self-respect for people to come together and like, well, since none of us are getting on this bus, let's organize a carpool. Let's pool our money. Let's pool our resources. Let's organize ourselves so we won't take this bus, but we will get to work. We will pay our bills. We will feed our children, and that this will not stop us from doing what we need to do. It takes a certain amount of self-respect. And then, of course, we know the history. They acquiesced and they allowed people to ride the bus. But it took self-respect for that minute bit of justice to take place. Dr. Welsing also teaches that courage is the first cousin of self-respect. Once again, I had to think about it. It wasn't readily apparent. But once I thought about it, I think about it like this. We were all children at one time. We all went to school. We all went to school with a bully. Some of us may have been the bully. Do not raise your hand. At some point, in order to get the bully off your back, there's a certain amount of self-respect that has to kick in.
That's right.
And that makes courage. And at that point, you don't worry about whether or not you're going to win or lose. As I heard a brother say, you just tear the bully's kneecaps up. And what generally happens, because I've seen it, done it, is that the bully looks for someone else.
Easier victim.
He's looking for an easier victim. He's not looking for a fight. And when we think about racism, white supremacy, that's how we have to think about it. Right now, we're an easy prey for the bully. And the European has been the bully all around the world.
That's right.
And he's gone all around the planet picking on people, beating them up, psychologically, physically, mentally, because he's been the bully. But once again, as Dr. Welsing teaches us, when we gain our self-respect, we'll gain some courage and we won't be bullied anymore. We have Straight Black Pride Youth in the building. Give them a black hand. And he's going to come up and give a tribute to Dr. Welsing. So I'm excited to see this.
All right.
See you.
So tonight we give honor to our ancestor, Dr. Cress Welsing, who was a psychiatrist and an author, and she continues to plant seeds in the mind of our African youth. She has done extensive studies on, but not limited to, genetics, white genetic recessiveness, African origins of all people, and the human mind. Her most famous book, The ISIS Papers, is stored with undeniable facts of the tools white people have used to oppress us, which include feminization, homosexuality, and interracial dating and marriage. In addition, it describes the African origins of civilization by highlighting Egyptian and other Africans' pioneering achievements in architecture, science, philosophy, Afrocentric interpretations of history, subvert traditional Eurocentric fabrications.
That's right.
All right. Talk to us.
She taught us that there is not a problem in the Black community that doesn't stem from white supremacy, and that white people fear Black males will have intercourse with the white woman and cause white genetic annihilation. Therefore, putting constant pressure on the Black male and removing their genitals helps them feel safer. Right. And removing the father from the Black family without the mother understanding white supremacy is one of their main goals. This is because without the knowledge of white supremacy, the mother usually tends to have a lot of anger to the father, but without them there, the anger transfers to their male children. And this makes them very uncomfortable with who they are, and they try to please the mother by becoming more like them. And that in turn alienates him from himself.
Teach.
A few of the other things that she talked about was drug abuse, which she said that does not happen due to people enjoying the drugs, but because there has been prior dependency deprivation, because their parents have been victims of white supremacy. The mass number of males that are going to jail are actually looking for fathers because there's no place in their community where males are showing power and force other than in jail.
That's right, that's right.
And another thing, that when parents don't give children the amount of emotional attention they need, they start looking for other ways to get it, and premarital sex occurs. And one of her quotes says that it's impossible for a child to meet the emotional needs of another child because you cannot pass on what you have not achieved.
That's right.
So 3 quotes I took from her. well, I quoted from her, says that if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. She said that I won't rest until black children are taught to love themselves as themselves. And finally, we don't see the war being waged against us because we don't want to and because we are afraid. We are engaging in behavior specifically designed to block out any awareness of the war, our true reality. And so in the words of the murdered psychiatrist, Black love is a revolutionary act. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was a survivalist. Her books prove that white supremacy is a fact. And make no mistake that she is alive because she won't rest until black children love themselves as themselves. Her ancestral spirit is here helping us thrive. The ISIS papers filling the shelves with evidence of white recessive genetics showing the importance of Afrocentricity, promoting beautiful black aesthetics, connecting us to our godly ethnicity, explaining drug abuse, premarital sex, and effeminization. All problems stem from white supremacy, all used to prevent white genetic annihilation. Know that none of this is fallacy or conspiracy. A conscious army she asked for. Know thyself to win the war. Thank you.
That's straight black pride right there, yes sir.
That was outstanding. Give the brother another round of applause. And I see right now that the Straight Black Pride movement, the future is bright. Because basically I see I have a replacement already
Yes,
right
sir.
now.
We're getting ready, that's right, that's right. Get them young.
So that just goes to show, and we need to congratulate the parents.
That's right.
That's right. Let's do that.
That just goes to show that when we begin to educate our own children and we begin to teach them the truth, they can take what we give them and carry it forward way beyond where we even think is possible. Because this young brother there, he's on his way. And he got a little sister there, he has another brother. So there's a beautiful family there. Some of my favorite people, and even more so now.
That's right, that's right.
So what we plan to do is not have me stand up here all day and speak. That is not what we plan to do. What we're going to do is we're going to open up the floor for people to give their testimony on how Dr. Welsing has affected their life, how her work has bettered their life. And we're just going to give people a little time to come up and speak. Make sure you have something positive to say about Dr. Welsing, because if you say something that is not positive, you will be shown the door.
That's right, that's right.
I just wanted to make that clear, just in case anyone was confused.
It's not a democratic society.
It's not a democratic society. Is there anyone that would like to come up first and speak about how Dr. Welsing has affected their life?
We covered 20 years.
All right, we got a brother coming up. What's your name, brother?
Brother Shoot. Brother Shoot.
All right, Brother Shoof is going to come up and he's going to tell us how Dr. Welsing has affected him and affected his life. And I'm going to hand the mic over and have a seat.
Thanks, brother. Just want to say, when I met her, Frances Cress Welsing, for the first time was at Howard University, beating the pavement when they were beating Black Pride and Black Power out of the university.
Yes, sir.
Started calling it Howard University. Mm-hmm. And most students did not realize that the name Howard is a white general. Mm. And they call it HBCU. But just reading her book actually gave me more insight on things that I kind of saw going on in the community. So it just reinforced it. And also, it's also a great book to give to people who are not as conscious as you are. You know, so it's easy reading. I mean, it makes you, it's not gonna let you put it down. You're gonna try to read it all the way through. But just meeting her, and I ran into her again in Baltimore when the brothers in Baltimore were doing a lecture, and she still was positive. And she recognized me from the lecture. Used to hang out with Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz when we used to pound Howard University. Even though I wasn't a student, I I was up on campus trying to make things happen for the community.
Yes, sir.
So I stand as a witness to her greatness by achieving and following some of the guidelines that she provided for me, even when I was in my late 20s. I would say late 20s. So every time I get a book, I make the mistake of lending it to somebody.
Bad move.
I think I purchased 5 books.
That's right. We ain't getting that back.
And, you know, autographed books on top of that, you know, so. And then you never see the person again, but you be like, okay, you know, if you're going to take that, I'd rather for you to take that. You know,
Yes, sir.
no problem. But that's pretty much all I can say. She's in my rituals when it comes to affirmations and just acknowledgement of my ancestors. Big ashe to Frances Cress Welsing.
Ashe.
Thank you, brother.
Come on,
Thank you, brother. Give this brother a high hand.
Straight black pride.
Straight black pride, everybody.
Straight black pride.
Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. I don't have enough words to express what this woman means to me. First and foremost, she taught us that an Aphrodite, scholarly, intelligent black woman can be professional, get her higher education, and still be for the struggle.
That's right.
Jeannie probably doesn't remember this, but the first time I met Irritated Jeannie was at the Dr. Frances Cress Welsing Institute. I went to one of her lectures. He was out there passing flyers. He was with Positive Comedic Visions, and I never even heard of the organization. So that's where I first met this brother. So, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing is a modern day Harriet Tubman.
That's right.
A modern day Ida B. Wells.
Yes, sir.
A modern day Sojourner Truth.
Yes, sir.
And we should embody her principles, everything she taught us, and battle and fight white supremacy to eradicate in us and in this whole total society. Right. So that's all I have to say, brother.
All right.
Thank you.
I have to agree with you. There is not too many words that anyone can say at this point. We know that it was a genocide and a murder, and that's one thing that we need to uplift and challenge, because she was challenging that, especially the Zionist attack that was done against her and her property. And it still goes on. And many a time listening to her, you know, she brought up with what was white supremacy. And not too many people got it. They call it any other name or whatever, but she just clearly set it out each time that she lectured. And pretty much right here with the War on the Horizon, Straight Black Pride, is where you see the work that continues of exposing that white supremacy.
That's right.
So we have to remember her words, and that is what, you know, when we learn from an ancestor, they're not gone, they still continue. They, as you said earlier, they live on. And they live on through us and what we do each day. So this much I want to say that, because we got a lot of work to be doing here in Babylon, as we know, around the world, the Caribbean, as we know very fully, in a very hard world, that the homophobic world, I shouldn't say homophobia that is taking place around the world is countering an attack on those that are in the straight black pride of lifestyle. I know that as a Rastafarian, of, you know, the attacks that have been taking place, such as to Buju Banton, many of people that have conscious reggae speaking artists that they have tapped on. And so we quite clearly know, we see that as far as with our leader, with Irritated Jeannie, about the attack that happened, you know, and it's going in, you know, with Canada, it's going everywhere. So we've got a lot of work to be done. And yes, we uplift and acknowledge her today, but still a lot more to make sure that for our youth, our children that are here, it passes on to them so that when they get an adult, they can fight as what we have to do now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Sabrina. And I just wanted to say that there's an African proverb that says the best way to honor a fallen warrior is to pick up their fallen sword and shield and fight on. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Straight Black Pride movement is doing with Dr. Welsing. We're manifesting what she talked about.
That's right.
Where we get confused sometimes, and I've seen this for years, is that we'll have scholars, we'll produce great scholars, and they're constantly studying, and they're constantly building, and they're constantly analyzing, and they're constantly giving us the information so we can better ourselves, and then we get comfortable with the information.
That's right.
And we become information junkies. And then when the person's not there to give the information anymore, then nothing happens. But the Straight Black Pride movement, we're doing something completely different. We're taking the information and we're making it manifest. So we're taking the word and making it flesh, as it were. But it's going to take a lot more people who are willing to take a stand, who are willing to really take a risk. Because in today's climate, to be black, and really, in the last 500 years, to be black is to be at risk. Whenever you wake up, you at risk. When you go to sleep, you at risk. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're black, you're under attack. And if you think you're not, you are sadly mistaken. So with that, I think I got another volunteer. Brother, you ready? Get the brother a black hand.
Appreciate it. You actually said everything what I was going to say. But, Straight Black Pride.
Straight Black Pride.
Straight Black Pride is, as Brother Conrad said, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's plan in action. Everything that she talks about seems to be the foundation of Straight Black Pride. I've never met her, but I have watched a million videos on her on YouTube, and I purchased her book not too long ago, and I'm diving into it. And one of the quotes that, one of the things that she says that stuck out to me is that black love is a revolutionary act. And that translates to me as black love meaning love for self, love for my brother, love for my sister, love for one another. And building upon that is what, to me, what she spoke about and wants us to do to win this war.
And he mentioned black love. And what we have to understand is that love is an action word. It's a word where you're doing something.
Teach.
So a lot of times, and I know sisters know all about this, a lot of times brothers are throwing a love word out, but they're not really doing anything.
Uh-oh.
Look, the sister in the front, she's like, that's right. We don't want to be those people. And Straight Black Pride, we're not those people. When we say that we love black people, this is why we have events like this for free. It's not, now understand, the room is not free. They did not just invite us in and say, oh man, that's a great message. Yeah, sure, have it. Doesn't work that way. People had to sacrifice to make this happen. When this brother goes around the country, he has to sacrifice. The reality of the situation is our brother is the most hated black man in America. But that's an honor. Because when you're the most hated by an enemy, what that means is you're the most effective. That's what it means. And we don't look at it that way. So is there anyone else that would like to give their testimony?
Straight Black Pride, family.
Straight Black Pride.
My name is Brother Eternal. I've been attending Dr. Welsing's seminar for at least 6 or 7 years. And I like to say, even if you haven't read her material, just by going there, and hearing her and seeing her, you can learn a lot. You can pick up a lot. I've got to the point where I could be able to see through and read signs and symbols of what Dr. Welsing was implying as far as seeing evidence of racism and white supremacy and how it manifests into the effeminization of black males in particular. Case in point, I remember one brother, he was a Christian brother I know, and he was moving, and I saw this poster or this picture of a young black child on his knees at his bedside with a baseball, a white baseball, and a bat on his bed. And there was a shadow of a European, of Savior or Jesus. And I studied the picture and I said, oh, wow, this is obvious that what these people are pushing, this Christianity, they're really subliminally seducing our folks into becoming effeminized. I saw this clear, and I hope you all understand where I'm coming from. And I've seen other evidence of things here in DC. You know, I'm born and raised here in DC, and I've seen evidence of, like white males adopting black children. And, I've seen it all. But I like to say that there are several organizations or groups that sprung out of the teachings of Dr. Welsing that's out here now, and I even set up an altar for Dr. Welsing in my home. I had a dream of her. I felt her presence in my home. I've taken photos with her. I've even had my children to come out, and learn. And one of my daughters, I gave her the ISIS paper, and she had visited South Africa, and she told me that she had really read there, the ISIS papers. And, well, I'm gonna leave it there, Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. When he talked about the adoption that's going on.
Talk about it.
I saw a picture of, I believe, Charlize Theron with her son wearing... Yeah, thank you. I didn't know what was going on. First of all, I was like, why is the whitest white woman in Hollywood adopting black children? I mean, first of all, we already have Madonna, who we know is just totally insane, adopting black children. And now we have, apparently this is a thing in Hollywood, and because I wasn't paying attention, because I'm not really paying attention to what's going on, I didn't know that this was a trend where white people just randomly start adopting black children. And I'm gonna tell you what's gonna take place when they do that. These children that they adopt will be our future misleaders 25, 30 years from now.
That's right.
So when someone comes out of nowhere, and he's the new Al Sharpton and the new Jesse Jackson, and you're not gonna find out their history until that person is entrenched in leading our people astray. And then they're gonna say that's progress. We're like, well, I was adopted by so-and-so, and it was such a great experience, and that helped me to reach the level of consciousness that I currently have. And sad to say, the majority of black people are gonna be like, oh wow, that's so wonderful, so forth, so on, blah, 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 blah. And we will continue down the rabbit hole of racism and white supremacy. So I'm giving you that preview now. You can tell your children to watch out for those people. Because as we have seen with people like Will and Jada Smith, we see what happens when people basically do psychological experiments on their children. Now, I'm not sure. Does everybody know about, what's his name, Jaden Smith and his becoming a spokesperson for a woman's clothing line?
Mom.
the model for the women's clothing line. Think about what I just said. Their son is the fashion model for a woman's clothing line. Now, I'm gonna ask the sisters because I don't know. How many sisters plan on buying any of those clothes? I just want to make sure. To me, and maybe I'm wrong, it's disrespectful to women for a man to be the spokesperson and the model for a woman's clothing line. How many women are there on there? Approximately 4 billion women. You can't find not one, nowhere on earth that embodies whatever it is that you're supposed to be selling. I mean, at some point we have to stop falling for the flim-flams and the okey-dokes and stop believing what they tell us, because what they're doing is they're not targeting grown people. We're not fans of Jaden Smith. We might have been fans of Will Smith at one time, although I never was. But I'm sure somebody
Likely
was.
story.
But our children, they know who Jaden Smith is. They know who Willow is. She had a song out. I didn't even know. She had a song out. Apparently it was very popular. They're doing these things for the young people to bring them into this death style, as we say, where they're disgendering people. They're telling the boys to be girls, telling the girls to be boys. And the reality of the situation is very simple. Once again, it takes a black man and a black woman to produce black people. Any way that you can convince black men to not want to be with black women and black women to not want to be with black men is genocide.
That's right.
And if you do not believe me, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing speaks about that in the ISIS papers on page 91.
Tell them where they can find it.
So I don't want y'all to be like, oh man, he said genocide. Man, I don't know that dude. He ain't nobody. You gotta take it from me. Dr. Welsing already spoke about it decades ago. Is there anyone else that would like to give their testimony? You say get the brother? Brother, you want to come up? Thank you, sir.
So, how y'all doing?
Straight Black Pride, brother.
Straight Black Pride. Actually, my history goes back with Dr. Welsing probably before I was even born. My grandfather debated Dr. Cress Welsing. Then my father saw her on Donahue, when she did the Donahue, ran to DC to meet Cress Welsing. That's when she found out about the debate with my grandfather. And then maybe about 5 years ago, so obviously I was brought up, a certain way. I went to my father's house and I said, let me get that ISIS papers, because I hadn't read it before. He said, oh, you want that one, huh? I said, yeah, because he has a big book collection. I said, yeah, I want that. He said, okay. So I took it. He said, tell me what you think about it. So I read it, changed my life. I looked at sports different, I was really into sports. The first thing it did was change how I look at sports. Looked at everything different. So then about maybe 3 years ago, I said, you know what, she's in DC, I know I can find her. Because I didn't really know, I was on Facebook, but I didn't know all that was on Facebook. So I said, oh, she teaches at Howard once a month. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to Howard anyway. So I met her, and then I just been, coming around her. I seen her here at Dr. Ben's. I probably seen her about maybe 12 times. And every time I saw her, I just, it was like meeting a celebrity, but she always took the time to talk to me. Every time I wanted to talk to her about something, she would always talk to me at the end of any lecture or any event she had and give me her insight, and it was always good to get it straight from the source, you know what I'm saying? And the reason she said, to pass the mic to me, because I just gave her the ISIS papers last year. And I was trying to get her to come out, when she started back teaching classes, but we didn't get a chance, obviously. But yeah, she changed her life too. It's one of the first books I let her hold.
Good job, brother. Good job. Beautiful.
That's wonderful, brother. And that's amazing that you have that type of multi-generational history. And by the way, You said your grandfather?
Yeah, so he was on the, he was a bit of an integrationalist. He was on the other side. He was on the other, I mean, I could talk forever about it.
If you want to come on, tell the story. Come on,
Tell the story. We want to hear it, bro. Take your time. Take your time, bro. We want to hear that.
It wasn't, it's not a long story. But, you know, my grandfather, he was in the military. Of course, you know, that kind of messes with people's minds when it comes to how they feel about the country and things like that. So, you know, he was still into the...
I'm curious to know what he debated her on.
I'm good there. Okay.
Okay.
So it was about integration, though. He felt that, you know, we should integrate with our enemies, and she kind of felt, of course, you know, that we should not integrate with our enemies. They debated in Baltimore. He was still a community leader, you know, and my grandmother as well. But he just had, you know, certain ideologies that we all have to work through. So he was on the other side of it, where my father, you know, by that time, he was on the good side of it. So I was closer to him than my grandmother.
That's a wonderful story. It's really amazing. If you grew up in Washington, D.C., and you quote unquote conscious, really you had to read the ISIS papers. It's one of those foundational books. You had to go to Dr. Welsing's lecture. You literally weren't considered as a person who had any knowledge if you didn't know who Dr. Welsing was.
That's right.
And I remember a long time ago, that's all I'll say, I ain't gonna say how long ago it was. I used to go up to Georgia Avenue to Pyramid Bookstore. How many people remember Pyramid Bookstore? So everybody tell their age now. And it was a bookstore on Georgia Avenue, had a giant pharaoh head on the front. And I think all the way upstairs was the bookstore. And it had several other shops in there. Tape connectors. Bringing out some memories now. And I think I got my first copy there of the ISIS papers. And, you know, the energy in the city at that time was, if you wanted to run into somebody, you would just go there. And, I mean, anyone who supposedly, quote unquote, had knowledge or whatever, that's where you found them. And I just, you know, when I think about how Dr. Welsing changed my life, when I opened that book and started to read, it's one of those books that if you are, I think I was basically a teenager, you're not going to grasp the whole thing. But what happens is it seeps into your subconscious and it plants the seed. And it really is one of those books that can change your life and change your direction without you even realizing it. And then what can happen is you go back, you read the book, and you forget that you learned certain stuff. You like, wow. Because I know I was like, man, I didn't know Dr. Welsing wrote that in 71. I didn't know Dr. Welsing wrote that in 84. And it just goes to show, really, when you go back and read that book again. I have 2 copies now. One that I read, one that's just for future children I'm gonna have. You know, the one I read, you can imagine the type of shape that's in. The other one is pristine. It is not touched. It does not get loaned out. Marcus Garvey told us, never loan out the book that you want.
That's right. You never get it back.
Yeah, never get it back. And when I read that quote, I was like, man, I wish I had known this about 10 years ago. Could have saved myself some money. But is there anyone else?
I'll come up. I'll say something.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I really wouldn't consider myself conscious. I'm actually just kind of, I guess, trying to be that way or trying to go that way. But I'm a YouTuber, so that's how I found her. And I watched the Donahue show and a couple other shows that she did, but I was actually looking at Irritated Genie last week, and that's how I found to come today. So I'm happy that I did, and I'm glad to be here.
Which video you were watching?
I think you were in a debate with someone or something, talking about something. I can't remember. But it's so many I watch of yours, and of course Professor Griff, of course, too. But between the two, I'm always kind of looking to see what you guys are talking about. So that's all. I'm here, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister. And, you know, thank you for beginning your journey.
That's right.
And the brother has a DVD called I'm Conscious Now, what in the back. I suggest that you pick that up. It's a very good DVD for people who are just coming into knowledge, and just will help to guide you towards information that is solid and that's credible, and keep you from wasting a lot of time on information that is not very useful. We believe in having useful, practical information. You know, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things, some of which is relevant, some of which is not. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just saying that we believe what we have is relevant and practical. You guess you say something? All right. Thank you, brother. Give him a black hand.
Say Black Pride.
I came across the ISIS papers about 3 years ago. I'm here and there in DC, and it seemed like I kept running into people that kind of shared the same ideology as I did. I thought my Facebook was being tapped for a little bit, but I came across the ISIS paper about 3 years ago. I purchased it from Sankofa, and I've basically read the whole book. It's more of a reference book now. I call it the Bible. It's really the Black Bible, because as I read the ISIS paper, things started to make sense to me. And then, I wish I had it with me right now, but it's kind of beat up now with highlight marks. It basically looks like a Bible now, but I've learned a lot of things from this goddess. That's what she is. She's like, dare I say Jesus, but, she's our goddess. And then, I've picked up a lot. I look at things differently, and certain things on television I don't watch on TV, because, it's like a subconscious thing. Your subconscious can become conditioned, and she's mentioned a lot of these things in the book. And I never met her. I've actually missed the opportunity to meet her a couple times. I felt bad about it, but I'm glad to be here and see Brother Gina here and you here. I came a little late. I ended up in the gymnasium. Walk right by. But yeah, I'm glad to be here today. That's all.
Thank you, brother. And when the brother talks about he had the opportunity to meet the elder and then he missed it, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. We're running out of credible elders.
Say that again.
We are running out of credible elders. There's a difference between an elder and an older. Some people are just getting old. What they're talking about is not relevant. It doesn't make sense, and we can't use it to produce anything in this day and time. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just telling the truth, because we got plenty of young people doing the same exact thing. But when the thing about being here in DC is, we had a genius right here who you can have access to every month.
Yes, sir. Free.
Like clockwork.
Free.
For free. We don't really think about that. This is a person who could make a lot of money if she did something other than fought racism, white supremacy. You have to understand, there's no bonus check for fighting against racism. There's no, you're not gonna get any financial backing from the Rockefeller Foundation for fighting against white supremacy. So one thing that we have to understand is that when people like that make that sacrifice, and when they take the opportunity to fight for us, we have to support them while they are here.
That's right.
I'm gonna say that again.
Yes,
apparently everybody don't agree. It's kind of quiet. When we have people who are fighting for us, we have to support them when?
They are here.
While they're here. This is beautiful, this is great, this is fantastic. I feel the energy of the ancestor here. But we don't want to keep waiting until someone's not here.
That's right.
And then say, oh man, man, I missed out on so-and-so. Wish I had seen such and such. We don't want to do that. And another thing I'll tell you is, for those who have children, bring your children around those elders. Because one of the things that they love is to see the children and to be around the children and to just give them some of that wisdom and some of that energy. I don't think we do that enough. I think we're all guilty of it, but it's something that we have to get used to, that when we have elders, that we support them. And Sister Sabrina has spoke about something that was going on with Dr. Welsing. I'm not sure if everyone knows. Right next to her, there was a Jewish day school. And she was in a legal battle with this school. The school was ordered to build a barrier, a sound barrier, between her property and their property. Now, she's speaking against racism and white supremacy. How many of us believe that they just voluntarily did what they were supposed to do? Everyone that believes that, raise their hand. Okay, everyone here understands racism and white supremacy. So, the reality is, she was still in a legal battle with these so-called Jews, the Zionists. And as the sister said, we have to be careful to maintain that property, because what they really wanted was to take that property. They already owned one side and then they owned the other side, and they really just wanted to run her out of her house. That's what she was dealing with on a daily basis at 80 plus years old. One thing we have to do, when our elders can no longer fight for themselves, we have to begin to organize to fight for them, because our enemies will prey on them. There's one thing we have to understand about the European. He never forgets an enemy. Okay, well, if no one else wants to give their testimony, our brother, the Irritated Jenny, has prepared a presentation in honor of Dr. Welsing. So what we're going to do is, we're going to play that, and then after that, we will begin to get ready to close the program.
Straight black pride, brothers and sisters. Straight black pride. Glad you all came out. Are you having a good time?
Yes, sir.
All right, you enjoying yourself?
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you, it's very interesting. I'm one of the, you saw how I just grabbed the mic. Some of y'all start grabbing your ears, how loud I am. I'm one of those rah people. And so I'm used to that. One of the things that really makes me feel good, I'm listening to the way the dialogue was going today. I see people that whenever somebody passes, they come in there and they do them. And I always looked at it like, that's cool, but shouldn't things be done in the spirit of the person that you come to honor? And you know how polite, respectful, attentive this whole event has been? It really reminds me of the spirit in the sense of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Very orderly. We have young people. It's not disrespect. We can all be here as a black family. Nobody's biting their tongue. But at the same time, it's very mature, polite, interesting. Isn't this in the spirit of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel like this is something that she would appreciate and been able to enjoy?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's give Dr. Frances Cress Welsing a round of applause for all the great work that she's done. We want to thank you, brothers and sisters, for coming out. And you know me, I get a little hot, so just forgive me. I'm going to try to keep it Dr. Frances Cress-like, but in talking about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, first of all, I could talk about it, but I can show you better than I can tell you. We said, how do we do an event to honor Dr. Frances Cress Welsing? Because Brother Conrad came up with the idea, the leader of the Straight Black Pride chapter DC movement, and he was like, everybody's doing it. I'm like, yeah, we can go to all of them. But he said, yeah, but what about Straight Black Pride? What about us honoring her, since what we're doing is really based off the foundation of everything she taught? And I said, we all talked about it, and everybody's like, you know what, that's true. Because everybody's going to talk about Dr. Welsing from their own perspective, but the reality of it is, what he said before, who's going to do the work? It's one thing to say, we appreciate you, Dr. Welsing, but who's going to do the stuff she said needed to be done in order to challenge white supremacy? We said, when we're doing that, then we should give an appreciation to her for the fact that if she hadn't done what she did, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So the first thing we said, look, every time we speak, if we really honor Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and we believe that she contributed like that, we shouldn't just go one day. We were going to do a plaque and try to give to her family. But we said, well, who's going to keep that plaque? We said, no. She should be embedded in what we do from time immemorial, from the moment Straight Black Pride starts till the end. So we said, look, we made a banner. We went and paid money. This ain't free. We got the artwork. We said, here's the African family worldwide. And here's the African continent, our symbol. And here's our ancestor. So that every single time, that's not just this time that we remember Dr. Welsing today. Every time we bring a group of people together and we discuss something, you're going to be able to look and see this sister and remember her, to be drawn up. Some people going to say, who is that? It says Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. It says self-respect is the foundation for justice. What does it do? You know, before we do what we call libations, where they say our ancestors told us, if you say the name of our ancestors, they'll always live, because as long as we remember them and remember who they were and how they were and emulate that, they never die. Well, guess what? We say, this 2016, can't we turn it up a notch? We don't just say their names. We got images now. We embed their images and their statements that they told us and their names, so that anybody that sees their picture's worth 1,000 words. You can say it and one thing will happen, but it's different to see it. So we put this together so that we continuously, not just today, but every time we get together, show honor and homage to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Let's give her another round of applause for being someone worth us remembering. Now, I want to thank you for coming out. Of course, she talked about 10 major areas of people activity. She said 9, but we added health because we thought that was different enough from the other ones. So again, we can show you stuff, but we figured let's play a little bit of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Let's hear her words to see what was she telling our people about.
My definition of racism is as follows. Racism, white supremacy, is the local and global power system and dynamic, structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response, as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, for the ultimate purpose of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth, a planet upon which the vast and overwhelming majority of people are classified as non-white, meaning black, brown, red, and yellow, by white-skinned people, and all of the non-white people are genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to the genetic recessive white-skinned people. So that's my definition of racism, white supremacy.
So that's Dr. Welsing telling us basically what she spent her life doing, trying to help black people understand the system that we live under so we can avoid being exterminated, because she felt like the whites feel like we're going to get rid of them. So in order to prevent that, they're trying to get rid of us. So the best thing to do is for us to understand the system so that we can make good moves and good decisions in this system. Now, in terms of my personal story with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, my story goes back a long time. And I know I tell stories all the time and people look at me and think I'm making stuff up. Well, now you can't think that because my mama is in the house. Mama, would you please raise your hand so people can see? That's the actual mama. Now, this ain't like Memorex or no Photoshopping. Now, that's real mama there. I came from her. Now, let me tell you how I got introduced to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Now, my mother's a very intelligent woman. You know, that's one thing I have to say. I always appreciate it. I can talk to my mother because she's just extremely intelligent. I was a young boy. I was between 8 and 12. I don't remember, but I know I was very young. Between 8 and 12. Real young guy. Would I want to sit down on Saturday morning and watch something about an intellectual discussion? My mother was intelligent. Of course not. I want to watch Spider-Man. I want to watch the cartoons, X-Men, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, she told me this long after. So what my mother did was, see, she had the color TV was out in the living room. This is back in the day. Y'all don't remember this. Some of y'all don't know nothing about this, but I had a little black and white TV, and of course the antenna had broke, so I had a hanger inside of it, And if you put the hanger the right direction, you could actually get a little bit of service. If you didn't, then you couldn't see anything. How many people remember what I'm talking about? You had to have the antenna in there just right. And I was real good at it. I would put the antenna and turn it so that it hit the light, and it hit the little light switch, and if I held it right in the right place, sometimes I could really get some good reception. But anyway, I would have to go out to see the color TV on Saturday morning because I wanted to see the cartoons. So instead of trying to convince me to watch this program by a brother named Listerville Middleton, peace be upon him, who did a program called For the People, she knew I wouldn't watch this. So when I ran out there at 12 o'clock to go, or really 12 o'clock to go see the cartoons, my mother was like, no, I'm watching this in here. So for the first couple of weeks, I was like, well, I want to watch cartoons. And she didn't tell me to watch it, because she knew if she told me to watch it, I'd be going to rebel. She just said, no, this is what I'm watching out here. So I went back in there with my little black and white, but you know, cartoons is just better on the color TV. I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about. So the third week, I was just like, you know what? All right, let me see what this thing is. And I sat down, and it was Baba Listerville Middleton. And he was interviewing, I don't remember who the first, I think it was Asa Hilliard, Dr. Asa Hilliard, peace be upon him. And I started learning, and I never forget, it was Dr. Asa Hilliard, because he talked about the black God of Sar, and the X for resurrection, and Amen. And it's the first time in my life I've never heard anybody put those words together, black and God. That God was black in ancient Kemet, that they called Egypt, and I'm sitting there, and like I said, I was about 8 years old, somewhere in that age rate, and I'm sitting there going, why have I never heard this? They ain't teasing, this not, I've never heard this, and I'm sitting there, and then he's showing the pictures, and I'm listening. So, I mean, after that first week, every week, 11:59, I'm in my room watching my little black and white TV, watching cartoons. At 11:59, when it turned 12 o'clock, I'm out in front. My mama now, sometimes my mother's doing other stuff, it don't matter. 12 o'clock, I'm watching For the People. And I never forget, this beautiful sister with this big afro, you know, I always liked that look. She came down and sat at the table, and she did a 6-part series on color confrontation and the fear of white genetic annihilation. And again, I'm between 8 and 12 years old, I'm watching it, and it's 6 parts. I'm watching the first part one week, the next week, the second part. The next week, I watch all 6 parts, and then my mother, we get a little bit, my mom got a little, I guess she got a little extra on the check, and she got one of them VHS, where you can get the VHS, and you can record something. I'm not gonna tell them that she taped over my 6-part series to Dr. Welsing. I'm not gonna bring that up in here, because you know, she's still my mama, I don't wanna get no trouble, right? But I put it in, and I started recording For the People. So that even when it wasn't on Saturday morning, I would just sit down, and the one that I watched the most was the 6-part series with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because she was sitting at a chess table. Now I didn't know how to play the game of chess, but it was just interesting to me because she was saying, we black and they white, and it's a war. Really? At that age, that's what I picked up. And you know, I like, you know, you watching X-Men, that's a war, Spider-Man, Batman, it's a war. I was like, well, black people, we got a war too. So I was into this thing because it was a war, and I figured if I'm on the black side, I need to know what this war is about, because we're not going to win if I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So that was my introduction to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing at an extremely young age. At an age where I can't process all the information that I'm hearing, but I'm learning. And so I got addicted to For the People and ran into a lot of our scholars there. And then as I got older, I started listening to Dr. Welsing on my own. Matter of fact, in high school, they gave me no, it wasn't high school, right out of high school. Early in my college years, they gave me the ISIS papers. I couldn't understand it, though. I was one of those people, I was more to the Dale Jones. You got to come right direct. You got to be real simple. Whites is bad, blacks is good. Let's go fight them. Here's somebody that did it. This is how they done it, you know. So I read the stuff like the brother said, but it didn't process that well. So then I started listening to Dr. Welsing in D.C. They talk about, I go and see her whenever. Me and my mother would, sometimes we would go out and ride around. They had the Break the Chain series. We would go listen to Dr. Welsing, and I would always listen to her talk about this war that we were facing. And that was the whole thing I was studying. This woman said we in a war, and she introduced us to this man named Neely Fuller, who she said was her teacher. So he was right here in Washington, D.C. as well, worked right at the Census Bureau. And I was like, wow, how can this man be teaching black people about racism and white supremacy, and he works right there for the government, right at the printing office, and go home, and then at night in the evening, he go into the rooms of black folk just like this, talking about white supremacy and what the white folks want to do to you. So he had a book. I read his book. And after really studying Dr. Neely Fuller, I began to really appreciate Dr. Welsing more, because a lot of times, a lot of us like to take information and then get real bright and brilliant to our people, but don't want to introduce our people to the people we got that information from, you know what I'm saying? Right. She didn't forget who she got that perspective from, so that I was able to get introduced to him and her. And so right in the college, my college age, the whole time I'm chasing this whole thing about this war. I'm now studying these people, and now I come back out of college and come back to Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., I get the ISIS papers again. Now I'm a little older. I'm in the workforce. I'm dealing with racism on my job at the Department of the Navy, doing contracting work. And I'm seeing how they treating black folks. And I'm like, okay, I know what racism is. I feel it now. Now I go back and read the ISIS papers. It hits me totally differently. I said, oh, now I'm starting to understand this war she's talking about. And it's like a whole nother world starts to come out. And what's so deep is, I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced this, but a lot of what I do today, I got from Dr. Welsing. But if you had asked me this just prior to her passing this year, I forgot. You know, you get all that good stuff, you admire the person, then you go off and do your work, you forget that they're the ones that gave you all these ideas. So when you talk about the feminization of the black male and the homosexuality of the black race and all this stuff being a war against our people, you know, I would have stood very proud and tall and said, well, you know, I've been doing a lot of studying these years and I figured this out, right? And it wasn't until Dr. Welsing passed and the homosexuals started assaulting her. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because we got to say, look, if we're talking about keeping her memory alive, we got to understand there are people trying to take her memory. And we got to understand, if she said it's a war, then we got to be a war of fighters. That's what we're doing today, is not just us coming out saying we honoring Dr. Welsing. This thing lasts. This thing stands. You're going to see this image. Our children are going to see this. People are going to continue to go, this is a war, because we got to fight to keep her alive. Now, why? When I read her book, the homosexuals started attacking. I'll talk about a little bit about it. But we start looking at it, and when we start talking to people about the people that were attacking her, we start understanding why. I revisited some of the things in her book. I'm going to read this right here. Of course, racism and white supremacy is defined as the local global power system structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined. This system consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people activity. And we talked about the 10 areas of people activity. That's pretty much her standard tagline of Dr. Welsing. But when I started understanding why she was under assault, I realized, wow, a lot of who I am today, more than I would have given credit for. I got directly out of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's book. It became part of me. I forgot where I got it, but it's part of what we do. She said, white males fully understand that black males who are forced to identify as females will be programmed simultaneously into submission to the males they call the man, as opposed to aggressing against those same men. I mean fighting, that's war. Y'all hearing it? And it ain't me, this is not irritated Jenny. Jenny talking about, no, this is Dr. Welsing. That's right. Don't get, you get mad at Dr. Welsing, then you're gonna get in trouble with him. They also understand that after 20 generations, 400 years, male passivity has evolved into male effeminization, bisexuality, and homosexuality to other males in the area of people activity called sex. The more the black male strives to stand, the weaker the white male feels in comparison, and the greater the white male's thrust to effeminize the black male, to weaken the black male's psychological potential for aggressive and assertive challenge, forcing him into submission to, quote unquote, the man. I said, man, I'm reading this. This is from Dr. Welsing long before there was a person that anybody knew called the irritated genie. I'm reading this. I'm understanding it as a young man right out of college. I'm talking about 21, 22, 23, 24. Understanding that we're in a war for our racial survival. I'm eating this food. And then, 22 years later, I'm this person called the irritated genie getting put out of countries because I'm saying the black man is supposed to marry the black woman.
My decision stands. Obviously, if some people want to criticize, that's their right to do so. When he says criticize, Home Affairs Minister Michael Fay is referring to some of the comments posted to Facebook and made on radio talk shows that the minister acted arbitrarily by placing American Io Kamathi on Bermuda's immigration stop list. This in response to Mr. Kamathi's anti-gay and anti-white rant at the Liberty Theater over the weekend, which has been labeled by government as hate speech.
Created for our people around the world. In fact, I'm feeling so good in here. You know, I'm feeling like I think Bermuda might be a place for a straight black pride chapter. What y'all think? Okay. I did come to the right place. I think I came to the right place. See, we got a flag. We got our red, black, and green that Brother Garvey gave us. But then we said it's 2015. We got to add a little. So we had to add the father, the mama, and the children. That's a black family. And we straight, we black, and we proud. And the sun is shining on our people right here. Oh, yeah. See, this thing about to happen. Y'all see,
I think anyone that really spends any significant time analyzing not just what was said at that lecture, and in fact, if you spend the time to look at some of the speeches he's given in the past in other jurisdictions, which are all available online, you'll see that this is someone who has used incredibly offensive language that's derogatory and has no place in a modern society in respect of what he said.
Others online questioning what happened to a person's constitutional right to freedom of speech.
But freedom of speech comes with responsibility. And freedom of speech does not mean advocating hate, and it does not mean advocating anything other than what should be good and right. If you have a view, you do not express it in a way that expresses hatred and perhaps incites violence. We shouldn't stand for it here. And the decision, I don't see that it's harsh, but I believe it's a good decision. And I'm satisfied that I had more than sufficient information to make the decision that was made.
Mr. Kamathi's resulting re-entry ban comes as a surprise to some Bermudians who were unaware that the island even maintains such a list. In Mr. Kamathi's case, it will mean he will not be allowed to land on our shores for a period of 5 years.
At the conclusion of that period, the individual who's on the stop list can make an application to the minister to remove from that stop list. My statement was clear. In the minister's opinion, if someone has behaved in an undesirable fashion or words that affect under Section 31 of the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act, I, as minister, have the discretion to make certain decisions, which I took.
Meanwhile, complaints have been made to the Human Rights Commission about the Speaker's remarks after the Center for Justice reminded the public that it is an offense to incite hatred and violence through public speech. Asked if Premier Dunkley was involved with the decision to ban Mr. Kamathi.
The Act gives the minister the authority to make decisions, but of course decisions like this would be in consultation with colleagues as seen appropriate. But the authority given for that decision lies with the minister.
And we got to fight homosexuality and pedophilia and save black children. And I've totally forgotten the seeds that were planted that allowed to harvest this desire to fight for black people. It came right here from Dr. Cress Welsing. Now, let's talk a little bit about, since we in here honoring her, let's talk about the fight she's in. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
We believe that it's fair to say, if she was here, and we can't say this for sure because she's not physically with us, she's transitioned, but we believe that straight black pride is a living manifestation of what she lived and taught and believed in. She was 100% clear she's against homosexuality, so she was straight. She was 100% clear that black men and black women needed to stop interracially dating and interracial marriage and interracial sex. That was very clear. She and Neely Fuller made that 100% certain. So she was black and believed in black folks sticking with each other. And pride. That was the central theme in most of what Dr. Welsing taught. Self-respect is the foundation for justice. So if you take those three concepts and put them together, we believe that this organization is a living manifestation of her work and her ideas. So now, this is what's real deep, and we've done more research now. I can give you a little bit more background. Let me see what the next slide is. So, okay. Let me tell you what happened to understand why we were even doing this. Again, we've been taking the mantle of fighting homosexuality for some time now. So we did not even necessarily associate Dr. Welsing with that. Let me tell you what was going on in the background. This is going to really interest you. We actually found a video from about 2000, it was either 2009 or 2012. How many people in here have heard the name Cleo Monago? Raise your hand. All right. There's a sick homosexual in the community that calls himself the gay Malcolm X, who is trying to marry homosexuality with black power. And he's gotten contracts upwards of $12 million from the CDC, Centers of Disease Control. And basically what he does is he has organizations that bring young black males in and teach them that being homosexual is okay.
In the spirit of mutual respect, may we deepen our love and understanding of ourselves and each other and go forth from this space stronger and better men. Ashe. Ashe.
Cleo Monago founded the Black Men's Exchange, a national support group for homosexual and bisexual black men. One of their goals is to encourage people to protect themselves and others against HIV. To do that, they're trying to build more acceptance of homosexuality and bisexuality in the black community.
There are voices in our community that believe that we, as same-gender loving and bisexual black men, are less than men, that our love is unnatural.
I lived every day of my life in mortal terror of the word faggot. You know, one could not be faggot under any circumstances, at any cost, you know, because manhood, as I like to say, is a precious and delicate commodity among black people.
And supporting them in homosexuality. He's doing this all around the country. And he has one of them right here in D.C. And you look around and you see, yes, we talking about $12 million. He's being funded by the government and using that money to promote and build a homosexual enclave. But the dangerous part about it, the most dangerous to our discussion, most people in this room are trying to be black-minded, centered in blackness, black development, black African-centeredness. We want to know who we are, where we came from. His job in today's climate is to take away Brother Malcolm X, take away Brother Garvey, take away the Panthers and that sense of black power and replace it with homosexuality being the black revolutionary personality of today. Now, this was deep. He was sitting, it was either in 2009 or 2012, it was some years ago though, at a meeting with Al Sharpton, who promotes this white sex homosexuality. He's one of the big boys, one of the old ones. He got started by Bayard Rustin, who was the major homosexual in the movement during Martin Luther King's time, who was pushing homosexuality. Go up and look up the name Bayard, B-A-Y-A-R-D, Rustin, R-U-S-T-I-N. And you'll see he's one of the greatest race traders of the 20th century. And he tried to overthrow the Black Power movement and fight against it to push homosexuality during his time. And he did a phenomenal job in terms of how much he opened the door for the homosexual movement and how much he fought black power. But in today's time, he gave the money to Al Sharpton, and this is about Al Sharpton's statement, that's where we found this out. He funded Al Sharpton to get started in this movement. So Al Sharpton has been pro-homosexual in this movement from the very inception. That's what he's all about, in fact. That's what he's been about the whole entire time. We didn't know that. But long story short, it was about a few years ago. Al Sharpton, Cleo Monago, who's the one with the millions of dollars from the Centers of Disease Control to promote homosexuality in our community as Black Power, and Mark Lamont Hill, the guy you see on CNN and all these different things, were on, he used to be CNN, and then he was on Huffington Post. Mark Lamont Hill were on a forum trying to talk about promoting and allowing homosexuality in the black community.
Who's on this week? New York, LA, Chi-Town, DC, Atlanta, Miami. They know the D and Albany and New Orleans and Tennessee. Come sing with me. They're watching 3LW TV. Come watch with me.
Welcome to 3LW TV. I'm Lonell Williams on location in New York City, where today we are attending a panel discussion hosted by the Black Men's Exchange and Reverend Al Sharpton National Action Network. Today's subject is I Am a Man, Black Manhood and Sexual Diversity in the Black Community. Let's take a look.
we are and what we believe, but I'm going to let us and the young people in this youth army tell you a little bit about ourselves. So Impact, tell them who you are.
We are youth activists who view the creative arts and leadership training as a way to develop ourselves and change the world in a positive way. We believe that we must be the message that we bring through hard work, focus, discipline, unity, and the principles of SOS. Safe space, outstanding effort, and service to our family, friends, and community.
Of black bodies that we experience in our communities today, right? So I just want to lift that up. I'm just starting to make trouble, but I'm
just getting warmed up. All right. I mean, I hear two things. I hear two conversations. One is a conversation about sort of idealized types of manhood, what we want manhood to be, how we collectively as a community describe and frame manhood, being responsible, taking care of oneself, handling one's business in all sorts of ways. Moving with dignity. We can move on down the list of things that we idealize manhood to be, and I think that's an important conversation to have, particularly if we're going to talk about reframing and reimagining manhood in the context of a world that has all this other messy stuff attached to manhood. And that's the other piece of the conversation that I'm hearing. And part of it is how the world responds to that body, that physical black body.
And they were up there. I really think this thing was a transsexual. I don't know if it was a female or not, but it was like 4 gay guys. And when I say 4 of them, Cleo Monago, and I'm not discluding Mark Lamont Hill, because of course we didn't know anything about him until this attack on Dr. Welsing happened, and we realized, whoa, we started researching. So this is what's happened. I want you to understand how devious this thing is. We are now able to see. We didn't know this when it first happened. You know, Dr. Welsing passed, and we'll show you what happened. But for years, probably about 6 years or so, the homosexuals have organized and said, how do we get the black nationalist, Pan-African, African nationalist, black power community to accept homosexuality? And on the intellectual level, what they said is, we have to destroy the teachings of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
My brother Kevin said that the black community is homophobic for no rhyme or reason. I don't agree with that. No. I don't even agree that the black community, different from what the sister said, is simply homophobic. See, this is why we have to have a dialogue. Most of the reaction to homosexuality is usually focused on males. Even Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who I love, by the way, when she wrote the ISIS papers and talked about homosexuality and bisexuality, she focused on males, as if same-gender-loving women didn't exist. So one of the big concerns is the state of manhood among black people. The state of manhood since slavery. The state of manhood because of slavery. That's the underpinning here that rarely ever comes out. And how you gonna be a faggot, punk bitch after all that brothers has been to and embarrass us and step up there and represent like that after all we've been as we attempt to try to be men with no direction since slavery snatched the direction away. How dare you? That's real.
No, nobody in here knew that. We didn't know this. I didn't know this. I didn't even associate her teachings with being anti-homosexual, which they were. But the reality is they looked and what they realized is as long as that foundation, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, is the foundational information our people get in when they get in, like the sister said she read the book and she's learning. If you come into consciousness through that, you can never be pro-homosexual. That's right. Because she identifies it as a weapon against black life. That's right. But when you look at everybody who's serious, that comes out of the 90s and is in this movement fighting today, it's not one of them that you'll find that was not impacted by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, which is why you don't find any of the serious ones being pro-homosexual. So what they realize is when she dies, when she transitions, at the moment of it happens, we're going to undermine everything that she taught in her scholarship. Well, the object was to not talk about racism and white supremacy, but to discredit her so that they can usher in homosexuality. So what happened? Dr. Welsing passes on January 2nd, 2016. Okay, it wasn't 8 hours. It wasn't even 8 hours after that, homosexuals started coming out on Facebook and assaulting her. Well, she said some good things, but she was homophobic and her scholarship wasn't that good and all this kind of stuff. So we were like, what's going on here? I mean, we didn't understand. Then we looked up who it was. We looked at the guy and saw he was a homosexual. He's standing there with another guy looking like they just got married. And so we trying to figure out what's going on there. Then this other guy, Mark Lamont Hill, pops up. When Mark Lamont Hill pops up, he justifies the statement and the criticism that this homosexual is making of Dr. Welsing, and basically says that this is the homosexual that came out and made these Jeffrey McCoon. One day, it ain't even one. He is a coon, but I'm sorry. Now here's what he says: rest in peace, Dr. Welsing, a major producer of discourse of African-centric thought around black family and community, to whom Umar Johnson, Boyce Watkins benefit greatly. How do we honor the dead? Do we romanticize the best of them and negate their damaging acts and rhetoric? Or do we paint them whole by admitting the valuable contributions they made to thinking beyond deficit narratives of black life, while at the same time efficiently demonizing and distorting particular black lives, black women, and LGBT folk, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender? So he goes on to just start excoriating her. Women who are not deferential to their men, and men and women who desire same-sex partners. She calls them European. Dr. Welsing and others to the forefront of the community knowledge and production, drowning out much of the humanistic, research-based, and nuanced discussion of black humanity in the world of white supremacy. In honoring her, I must honor the truth as she told it, but I also must be honest and say that as a generation of slaveholders and racists had to die for some to be free, so do tyrannous voices of black radical ridiculousness. So this is how they're talking about Dr. Welsing. Who comes in? Mark Lamont Hill. And he says, oh, he agrees with the guy, a more thoughtful and nuanced assessment than mine. So he's saying he agrees with what this guy's saying. So Umar Johnson said, hey, are you agreeing with this? And so then Mark Lamont Hill starts going at Umar Johnson. Yeah, I agree with that. I think what he's saying is true. We can't just be glorifying. Here's our brother Umar. Why did you see the need to repost this negative thing about Dr. Cress Welsing? I think we need to discard parts of the tradition that reinforce homosexuality. After that, the homosexuals go in. Here you see the dumb B, didn't know gays, blah, blah, blah. So now it just becomes an all-out, that's how, so the homosexuals started a whole assault on Dr. Welsing. So we started looking and saying, well, what's going on with this Mark Lamont Hill? Why is he doing this? We started doing the research, guess what we found? In 2006, who was it that was out there writing that Malcolm X was a homosexual? Mark Lamont Hill. And we started researching, it's still online right now, you can go find it. He has a blog where he was saying that Malcolm X was a homosexual. He also talked about he had a good friendship with Dr. Collett, but he had made some negative comments about Dr. Collett. So basically, he's bled himself into being perceived as being pro-black, but he's a promosexual, homosexual pushing the gay agenda. And they were literally waiting. They couldn't even wait a week. It wasn't 8 hours. She hadn't even been taken to the morgue yet, probably. And now they're attacking her legacy to promote homosexuality. So, of course, we started going at this brother. Now I can't even call him brother now, whatever he is. This promosexual / this white sex offender is what we'll call him. And we started saying, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that Dr. Welsing's work, even though she focused on racism and white supremacy, she wasn't even focused on the homosexual thing, but that she hit that thing so hard in advance that they feel the need to spit on the legacy of an ancestor in her grave. They not doing this while she's alive. Mark Lamont Hill had Huffington Post, CNN. He could have interviewed her anytime. He had decades to do it. Never wanted to talk to her while she was alive. I talked to Brother Neely Fuller about this, Dr. Welsing's teacher. And what did he tell me? He said they're cowards. He said, yeah, they want to wait till she gone. They will say that stuff, but they won't do nothing. They won't call me now. He said, I'm here. I'm ready for him. Then this brother Neely Fuller, he don't usually talk. I've never seen him get that heated before. We were on the phone. He's like, I'm ready. Where they at? He said, yeah, they'll say that stuff when we gone, but I bet you they won't. That's his exact words. They don't want to tangle with us when we here. He said, I'm ready to tangle. Where they at? That's right. I said, wow. So, and this is Mark Lamont Hill supporting this whole gay movement. So, what we have is a whole homosexual attack of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because the homosexuals understand that strong black men and strong black women building families is the only thing that can fight white supremacy. But if you have strong black men and women together, and they have children like our brother has his son there. He don't want no homosexuals in this room. If we invited homosexuals in the room, would you be here with your son, my brother? Yeah. What if we invited the pedophiles and told them we understand what's going on? You out? I got my son and daughter here. We don't want that stuff here. What about people that wanted, a Negro wanted to bring his white female wife? Would you want your son here with that?
No, sir.
All right. I don't want my daughter here with that or my son here with that. So I know Brother Kaba in the back. I know he said, no, sir, we can't do that. So what we're dealing with is a situation where the homosexuals know the only way they can get into our community and be perceived as black power or strong is to take the movement that Brother Malcolm, Brother Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Fannie Lou Hamer, she said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. They want to change that to, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I like being tired. I don't know what to, but it's very serious because once we don't have what we have here today to talk about us coming together and protecting our community, once we no longer have that, and it's an open season where homosexuals can adopt our children, which they're doing now, where they can come in and force our children to learn to be gay in the classroom, putting dresses on our sons and daughters in the classroom. Literally, I mean, some of the stuff they're doing, I'm gonna have to show you one day because nobody in here will believe me some of the stuff. I got a sister that went to the class and walked in at a preschool. Her son's 2 years old, 4 years, 4 years old, 2 years old. I think he's 4 years old. She walked in Oakland and he's in a dress. No, he's in a tutu. He's in a tutu. And then, so I'm sitting there talking to her what happened, and she just telling the story casually, and she see my face frown up. She thought, yeah, I was mad, but I didn't want to be perceived as ghetto, blah, 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 so I didn't flip on them. But I told them, don't you ever do this again. And she said they started telling her, well, at this age, we just let them explore. She said they didn't have no trucks. They didn't have no male toys for the boys. All they had was plates and dishes and everything like that. And that's what her son said. She don't ever do this with my son again. So she comes back the next day to pick her son up. And the sister that she knows that had her children there too, she started telling me, would you believe they had my son in a tutu? She was all upset. You know what the sister told her? You should have been here the day before when they had him in a full wedding dress.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that's happening all around the country, and really is beginning all around the world. I mean, I'm hearing some of the stories out of Nigeria, East Africa, Southern Africa, and Brazil, the stuff they do. Everywhere we are, they're pushing us on our people. And they understand they cannot do that if we're strong. So let me move one out here, because this is not really about me. I just want to show you. So, what are they doing to our people? What they're doing is they got a movement now, very similar to Barrett Rustin and the Civil Rights Movement. People don't realize there was three movements. The Freedom Movement, which was legit. Rosa Parks and Nixon and all those brothers, they were serious. That Montgomery Bus boycott was serious. Then you had the Black Power Movement. That's Robert F. Williams, Mabel Williams, and all those that grew into the NRA, the RNA, and the Black Panther Party and all that. Then you had a white-sponsored movement, which job was to undermine both of those movements, which was called the Civil Rights Movement. The people that we are taught are heroes were the ones that were paid to destroy the other movements. Right. The same exact players are in it now. That's right. The white so-called Jews who are controlling and funding the whole thing, we call them small hats. Who do they pay? Yesterday, it was the Uncle Tom. Now, we didn't know at that time, but many of those Uncle Toms were homosexuals. But on the forefront, they didn't come off that way. Gay Philip Randolph, homosexual. A lot of these guys were. Barrett Rustin was openly gay. He wasn't hiding it. James Baldwin, openly gay, wasn't hiding it. But nowadays, they've replaced the undercover homosexual Uncle Tom, trying to undermine our movements, with a openly gay movement. That's right. That they are funding and financing. When you hear that Jay-Z's giving, $1.5 million to Black Lives Matter, that's the gay movement matters. That's the same individuals that are attacking Dr. Welsing. Now let me show you. Now I didn't make this. This is the founder of the Black Lives Matter movement, all right? Let's see what she has to say about what her movement is about.
What queer mean to you? Queer, to me, is an umbrella term that incorporates folks who are outside of the heterosexual norm and what we call heteronormativity, which is a big word for relationships. Marriage is just between a man and a woman. It's the patriarchal family as we understand it. What's important to us in Black Lives Matter is that we are elevating and cultivating the leadership of folks who have not been included in the conversation. That includes Black trans women. That includes Black immigrant women, Black disabled folks, Black incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. So to us, right, we're really trying to queer our movement. We know even in our tradition and our legacy of Black liberation that queer and trans folks have been in the leadership, however, have had to kind of cut pieces of themselves off because it wasn't acceptable. Baird Rustin being an incredible example of that. Audre Lorde being an incredible example of that, right? We want to create a different kind of movement culture. We think it's important, we think we need it, and we don't think that we can survive without it.
So I hear that and I think, fantastic, the more the better.
That's the founder of the Black Lives Matter?
That is the founder, the one that's getting all the money from the small hats, from those that are trying to undermine Black male-female relationships and unity of our people, and literally trying to force feed our children. Pure insanity.
Queerness.
They're trying to queer our children. They're being they're not even, and the reason is, it goes back to what Dr. Welsing says, there's no manhood anymore. There was a time in the Black community, the reason homosexuals didn't come out was not because what anybody was gonna say. Brothers just picked their hands up and started busting upside the head. We didn't even understand how dangerous homosexuals. We just knew shouldn't be around no children. We don't like the way you acting. Get out of here while you acting like that. Go get yourself toughen up. We used to beat them up to try to. We didn't know how to fix it, but we was like, don't come around here with that stuff because it just ain't right. Don't feel right. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't want that in our community because we understood it was sick just by looking at it. Sisters wasn't having none of that stuff. Now, I haven't talked to a sister who responds aggressively to a lesbian hitting on her. She just is polite with it because it's so much have taken over the Black female culture that sisters don't have the same aggression. And brothers acting more gay than the gays now. If you say something about homosexuality, brothers, I don't give you that either. Like, why are you whispering? Listen, brother, I seen brothers jump in the closet. I said, wait a minute, Black man, you ain't the one supposed to be in the closet. Let him get back in the closet. But long story short, this is what Dr. Welsing was fighting. And so they even announced that they're going to shut our movement down.
Do we accept crack dealers in our community?
They came and tried to disrupt one of our events here. Who was here when they came here and tried to disrupt our event?
So your interests here are no longer useful citizens.
We see what happens when they come and try to shut Straight Black Pride down. Now she comes, we doing a thing about school. Again, we're not even talking about homosexuality. We're talking about schools and how dangerous they are for our children. She come in talking some weird stuff that we already know about racism, and she do this long soliloquy.
When we say justice or else.
And then by the end of it, she comes around and starts talking about, yeah, but I think we need to be more accepting. I said, oh, accepting what? They actually went publicly, Black Lives Matter, and said, we are going to shut down every chapter of the Straight Black Pride movement and everybody in it. They ain't happened, has it?
No, sir.
But I want people to understand that they have the objective of doing it. It's not that easy when you got men. And my point being, Dr. Welsing talked about manhood. When you have men are thinkers. We're not doing anything for you to come in here and shut us down. So if you try to come shut us down, we're going to shut you down, and we have the authority to do it and the rightness to do it because this is a peaceful assembly. Everybody feel like this is peaceful? So, but we also have men here. We do a bunch of negotiation. Somebody come to do something. So people are safe in this environment. So I'm saying that to say that's what our community is missing. And what the homosexuals realize, if they don't allow this to grow, they can just come in and take the community. But as long as there are Black men and Black women who are going to stand with us men, because see, we can't do nothing if the sisters don't support us. Because then the sisters just turn us in and then we don't have it, we brother can't get no attorney. There's going to be a sister that's going to do that. A brother can't argue the case of what happened. A sister just go up there and cry about what they did to us and everybody get on our side. The Black woman has the ability to justify Black manhood or to do what too many sisters are doing, to justify homosexuality and the destruction of Black manhood. Whatever the Black woman rubber stamps is what you're going to see more of. And so that's why they haven't been able to shut this down. They're not going to be able to shut it down because you see all the sisters in this room with them.
Back in the 70s, a man named Dr. William Shockley, a noted scientist, embarked upon the mission of proving to the world that black people are genetically inferior. After the debate you're now going to see, Dr. Shockley went back into oblivion.
And it goes this way, that you would offer a bonus to everyone to be sterilized. Now, we know we have a population explosion problem. We know that in India that bonuses in the form of transistor radios are offered to people.
Would this bonus be directed to black people specifically, more than whites?
Mr. Brown, what did I say just a moment ago? I said, regardless of sex, race, or welfare status. The offer is based upon the best estimates, best scientific estimates that one can have of any genetically carried disabilities. Now, there are some, I think, that any humane person would have no doubt about. And Dr. Welsing talked about dominant and recessive genes. I want to point out that sometimes a dominant gene can be a very bad thing, and it is a very bad thing for a neurological disease called Huntington's chorea, which is something like multiple sclerosis.
Which is more prominent in white people than black people.
That is correct. And I think that one should offer a large bonus for anyone who might be potentially carrying Huntington's chorea.
Dr. Shockley,
beyond this, it goes on with some other factors in this, but Dr. Welsing wishes to speak.
Are you aware that white people have more genetic diseases that affect their nervous system than people of color, than black people?
I wouldn't be at all surprised. And I think blacks apparently have higher heart problems.
Would you suggest that all of these white people who are carrying these defective genes, you know, whose families may carry these defective genes, that they be examined and it would be suggested to them that they be sterilized? Would you suggest this?
Yes, I think I would, probably, in general.
Go ahead, your Unblack Journal, please.
My theory was, I wrote the paper in 1969. I wrote a paper called The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. And the sole reason behind writing that paper was an attempt to understand the behavior of white people in relationship to all people of color, every place in the world, black, brown, red, and yellow people. And the paper was presented to the Americans at the National Medical Association, the section on psychiatry, in neurology, because back in 1969, the Black Caucus in the American Psychiatric Association, we had said that racism, and when we talk about racism, we're talking about the white supremacy behavior of white people. That racism was the #1 mental health problem in the nation, and it was the #1 cause of other mental health problems. And I wanted to understand what this thing of racism really is all about, because it's the thing that has caused woe and misery and suffering for the vast majority of the people on this planet that are classified as non-white. And in my attempt to understand why the necessity of white people to keep saying that white is superior and that the condition of non-white is inferior. And the more I thought about it, in conjunction with an idea that a friend of mine had, that racism was a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people, I put those ideas together with what we know about genetics, what we know about the condition of skin whiteness itself. The condition of skin whiteness is the genetic inability to produce skin pigment called melanin. This is a genetic recessive trait. It is a genetic deficiency state, not as defined by Cress Welsing, but defined by geneticists and dermatologists, that the inability to produce the skin pigment of melanin or melanin pigment is described as albinism. And I think that white people, even though most white people are not consciously understanding their problem in genetics, they are certainly aware that they are genetically dominated by people of color. That's why it was a statement, one drop of black blood makes you black, because people of color have the genetic capacity to annihilate white people. And so unless white people control the reproductivity of people of color, then we can postulate that perhaps one day there won't be any white people. And I think that the very survival of white people necessitates that they project genetic inferiority on people of color, because it is they who really are aware that they are genetic recessive and perhaps genetically inferior to people of color. And I am not saying this to call the condition of skin whiteness to say, well, no, white people are inferior. I'm not saying it for that purpose, but I think that it is of prime importance for the majority of people in the world to understand why it is that white people have to, the effective majority, large numbers of white people, have to move in a hostile, in an aggressive way against people of color, and have to constantly focus on it's you who's genetically inferior, because they realize that there's something wrong with their genetic status. Now,
may I take a call?
Oh, sure.
All right.
I'm not the girl on videos. I'm not a bitch or a hoe. I'm redefining what you see when you look at me. So whoa, crown me queen, redeem me, crown me queen. I'm supreme. Crown me queen, redeem me, crown me queen.
See, our brain has been turned completely upside down. And our brain is not functioning. Brains are not functioning for our best interests. And we have to go back. See, it's okay to be wrong. We were, you know, we thought when we were enslaved, just take off the chains.
Yeah.
If you take off the chains, everything is going to be okay. So the chains were taken off, and the next thing well, they got these laws. So we struggle with the laws, called the Civil Rights era. And white people said, fine, we'll change the laws, but we're going to hire some of their so-called musicians, and we're going to do some psychological warfare on these people, the likes of which they've never seen, because they don't know what we're doing. So as long as we give the musicians some jewelry and about 15 cars apiece, and we will have them train their people. See, if you look at the black people in the civil rights movement, when those people went up against dogs and horses and being beaten, and they were walking in dignity and talking about black is beautiful, black pride, black dignity, black self-respect. And the white people said, we gotta get rid of this. And since they don't understand what we're doing, we can sock it to them. We're gonna give them superfly and drugs and guns. And then we're going to start training them to call themselves niggers and saying it's a term of endearment. And call themselves gangsters and thugs and dogs and bow wows and bitches and hoes. Now, if they ever recover, see, if people can take you where you're going to call yourself a nigger, a bitch, and a hoe, and a dog. Let's give them some more eggs. Imagine when they get together. These people are so brick-drawn. These are about the dumbest people on this planet. We can do anything. There's an African proverb that says, the monkey was so busy doing what everybody else was doing that one day, monkey cut his throat. See, that's some deep stuff in some of those African proverbs. See, monkey see, monkey do. What you doing today, white people? Oh, sex with dogs. Ooh, goody, give me some of that.
Whatever they do.
You see, so I see the creator. black as a trillion midnights. Eyes shining brighter than a billion suns, whose hair doth coil tighter than a million springs, radiating all energy throughout the universe. We beseech thee, one and only one, to give us total strength to carry out thy will for the universe, to establish justice and live in peace.
Trials, did you underground so you couldn't be found? I even felt your shoes when they jailed or killed you. I think it's safe to say I paid my dues. Your present disregard for me destroys the black family. Keeps us from
their genetic survival, and they are threatened by black male masculinity. Then it will occur, I have to reduce his masculinity. Yeah, we just recently had the president at Morehouse have to say the male students cannot wear high heel shoes and dresses and carry purses. So something is happening, again within the total context of a system of racism and white supremacy. Neely Fuller, who wrote the textbook for victims of racism a number of years ago, in the late mid-70s, he used to say in the system, because he was the first person to talk about racism as a system, and he said that as the system of racism and white supremacy moves on, the system is going to have black men wearing dresses. Now, to hear that in the 70s, people said, oh, this is way out. And here we are. You see, there's some black pediatricians who are saying we are developing epidemic levels of the effeminization of young black males. Well, I say the pants sagging down is just a subconscious invitation for homosexuality. You see, it's revealing the buttocks. See, so the pants are getting lower and lower and lower. The next step is to step out of the pants altogether. And so you step out of the pants, you're going to put on a dress. The effeminization is an essential ingredient of white genetic survival, and the only thing that can prevent it is black people becoming conscious or becoming determined that this is not going to happen to them, because if the black men are destroyed, then the black people are gone, and we have the state of genocide.
I see a lot of I don't like, dog. Y'all full of it. I'ma take the diaper off. Call it what you want. Some would say homophobic. I refuse to accept too many loping. They want my opinion in the closet, the very same closet they climbed out. Now they want to shove me in and lock it. Throw away the key, cause they don't want to talk about the hypocrisy. Honest discourse with its democracy. The black narrative from the isosceles shows no misogyny. I challenge y'all to read. Don't fall for this fake anthropology. Don't fall for this pseudoscience. It ain't no gay gene, man, these kooks all lying. So what they saying is the Most High flawed when he made them in reference to sexuality. Even though he perfectly made galaxies and nature, it's a learned behavior, a sick psychology.
We are developing epidemic levels of the effeminization of young black males. Well, I say the pants sagging down is just a subconscious invitation for homosexuality. The next step is to step out of the pants altogether. And so you step out of the pants, you're going to put on a dress. If the black men are destroyed, then the black people are gone, and we have the state of genocide.
All right, what I also would ask you to do, the sister in the back, oh, come on, would you want to say something? You want to say something, little baby? What you want to say? Here. All right, now everybody looking. You want to say something? Say straight black pride.
Straight black pride.
All right, straight black pride. Thank you. She just want to stand up here with her daddy. And I guess I can't tell her she can't do it. This is straight black pride movement. I can't do that, can I? We gotta stay up. You can stay on up here with Daddy. You all right with that? All right. All right. Well, we're gonna bring our brother Kaba on up here. Let's give him a round of applause. This is the baddest brother, the voice of the future. And I told you that he got a voice, that soul of a Donny Hathaway. So he gonna prove me right now. We gonna bring him up here, and we gonna do Someday We'll All Be Free.
So this is a song right here that is an anthem, and it's a song that I think embodies a lot of, pretty much the spirit of Dr. Welsing and what she was all about freedom. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep your self-respect, your straight black pride. That's right, that's right. Get yourself in gear. Keep your stride. Never mind your fears. But the days will soon be here. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Y'all believe that?
Yes, sir. Sing it, man.
This is my little helper right here. He's a future performer.
That's right.
He loves to get on the mic and loves to play drums and instruments. So I think at some point in the future we'll be seeing him.
That's beautiful.
And of course he's the product of straight black pride.
That's right. That's right.
Along with my other two back there, they're just a little less inclined, but they all about that too. They had a long day. My baby girl's back there sleeping.